Next Take podcast, episode 101 with Mikel, and
And Tanyka.
where we have conversations on different topics. So, we're going to be doing a topic episode, and Tanika will present us with the topics of this episode. Go on.
Okay. So I know I did mention this in another episode. So now we're going to be talking about the fact that Earth used to have the Saturn-like rings.
Hmm.
We talked about that on the last space episode or space topic that we did.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then China has ended its international adoption program, and an immortal creature can create contagious cancer. So yeah,
Mm.
you heard me right. It is an immortal creature. That so yeah, we're
Interesting.
gonna be talking about that.
Okay. All right.
All right. So start with the first topic. So
Yes.
Earth may have sported a Saturn-like ring system
Hmm.
roughly 466 million years ago,
Mm.
after it captured and wrecked a passing asteroid, a new study is now suggesting. So the debris ring, which likely lasted tens of millions of years,
Hmm.
may
Hmm.
have led to global cooling and even contributed to the coldest period on Earth in the past 500 million years.
Mm.
That's according to a fresh analysis of 21 crater sites around the world that researchers suspect were all created by falling debris from a large asteroid between 488 million and 443 million years ago, an era in Earth's history known as the Ordovician, I hope I said that right,
Mm.
during which our planet witnessed dramatically increased asteroid impacts.
Mm.
A team led by Andy Tompkins, who is a professor of planetary science at Monash University in Australia,
All
used
right.
computer models of how our planet's tectonic plates moved in the past to map out where the craters were when they first formed over 400 million years ago. The team found that all the craters had formed on continents that floated within 30 degrees of the equator, suggesting they were created by the falling debris of a single large asteroid that broke up after a near miss with Earth. So,
Mm.
quote, under normal circumstances, asteroids hitting Earth can hit at any latitude at random, as we see in craters on the Moon, Mars, and Mercury. This is what Tompkins said. And he said, so it's extremely unlikely that all 21 craters from this period would form close to the equator if they were unrelated to one another. The chain of crater locations all hugging the equator are consistent with the debris ring orbiting Earth, scientists are now saying. That's because such rings typically form above planets' equators, as occurs with those circling Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune.
Mm.
Which I think like some of those, because Neptune, I don't think it's visible, and I don't think it's visible through Uranus either. Um, I think Saturn, Ju I can't remember if Jupiter's are visible, but
Mm.
in case someone knows, which really we should have known this from elementary school, those planets have rings, but they're just not visible to
Mm.
like the naked eye, whatever it is.
Right. Right. Right.
So the chances that these impact sites were created by unrelated random asteroid strikes is about 1 in 25 million, the new study found.
Mm.
Um, the researchers estimate that the ring spawning asteroid would be about 7.7 miles, so it's 12.5 kilometers for us here
Mm.
in Canada and everywhere else that's not the States, wide if it were a rubble pile, or slightly smaller if it were a solid body. Once it shattered after nearing Earth's vicinity, its
Mm.
fragments would have jostled around before settling into a debris ring orbiting Earth's equator.
Mm.
Quote, over millions of years, material from this ring gradually fell to Earth, creating the spike in meteorite impacts observed in the geological record. We also see that layers in sedimentary rocks from this period contain extraordinary amounts of meteorite debris. The team found that this debris, which represented a type of meteorite that was found to be abundant in limestone deposits across Europe, Russia, and China, have been exposed to a lot less space radiation than meteorites that fall today. Those deposits also reveal signatures of multiple tsunamis during the Ordovician period, all of which can be best explained by a large passing asteroid capture and breakup scenario that we kind of just talked about.
Hmm.
The new study is a new and creative idea that explains some observations. This is said by, I think it's Berger, though it's spelled Birger, Schmitz of Lund.
EIR.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Berger or Bayer. If it's
Biter.
Bayer,
I think it's biter. Yeah.
yeah, of Lund University in Sweden, told New Scientist. But the data are not yet sufficient to say that the Earth indeed had rings. So we're obviously to speculate, and all you can do in this situation is to speculate because Earth doesn't have rings currently.
Mm-mm.
Searching for a common signature in asteroids' grains across the newly studied impact craters would help test the hypothesis.
Mm.
If Earth did sport a Saturn-like ring around its equator, the ring would have significantly affected our planet's climate, according to the
Mm.
new study. Because Earth's axis is tilted relative to its orbit around the sun, the ring would have cast a shadow over parts of our planet's surface that may have caused global cooling, but
Mhm.
you know, the details on that are still murky, so we don't know that for sure.
Mm.
Maybe we wouldn't be dealing with global warming, but who knows?
Mm.
The researchers speculate that such an event may have contributed to the dramatic cooling of our planet 465 million years ago, which led to the
Right.
coldest period in the past half a billion years, known as the, oh God, I'm going to butcher this, Hernatian Ice Age, one of the ice
Mhm.
ages. Quote, we don't know how the ring would have looked from Earth or how much light it would have cut out or how much debris there would have had to be in the ring to lower the temperature on Earth. This research is described in a paper that's published, I believe it was published December 16th of 2024 in the journal Earth and Planetary Science Letters. I guess if you're interested in learning more about that. But
Mm.
that's that topic.
All right.
All
Okay.
right. Let's move on to the next one. This one I found kind of interesting. And I wonder, like, how like, what's gonna happen with this? But
Mm.
so a Quebec man and his wife are devastated after China suddenly stopped most international adoptions, dashing their hopes of adopting a little boy they've spent years getting to know. They said, quote, "We feel that we have a special connection with him." This was said by Pierre Lemay from Quebec City. We received pictures, we received videos. We were seeing him growing and learning things and doing stuff a little boy would do, he told the Current's Matt Galloway. LeMay and his wife, Natalie, oh God, here come my friends, Bisonet, I think, married
Mhm.
in 2015 and are now in their late 40s. They started the adoption process several years ago and were matched with a 4-year-old boy in early 2020, but the pandemic stalled their application, and the boy, who has special needs and a heart defect, is now 8 years old. LeMay said they were at the second to last step of their application process, awaiting authorization to travel to China and bring the boy back to Canada. But on September
Mm.
5th, China, so 2024, China announced the international adoption program was ending immediately to bring the policy, quote, in line with international
Mhm.
trends. Only
Right.
blood relatives will be allowed to adopt a child or stepchild from another country. Quote, we express our appreciation to those foreign governments and families who wish to adopt Chinese children for their good intention and the loving kindness they have shown. This was said by Mao Ning, who is a foreign
Mhm.
industry spokesperson. LeMay
Mm.
confirmed the change with his adoption agency, and the Quebec government. He wants the federal government to advocate to China for the completion of applications that were already in progress. I think that would be fair, honestly. He said, quote,
Mm,
given our age, we don't think there's going to be another possibility.
mm,
In an emailed statement to the Department of Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, IRCC, said it is working closely with contacts in China to review the changes. A request for comment to the Chinese embassy in Canada did not receive a response.
mm,
And LeMay says that he is worried about the boy, because this is again is the same boy who is dealing with special needs and also has the heart defect.
mm,
Um, Delia Bottom, who runs a BC adoption agency, was surprised that China didn't allow existing applications to continue, but said she wasn't surprised the program ended, saying, quote, is a significant number of countries around the world who are no longer doing inter-country adoption or who are doing significantly fewer. Um, and I believe she is the executive director of Sunrise Family Services Society, a licensed nonprofit adoption agency in Vancouver.
mm,
That's in part because they have developed a system internally to meet their children's needs. China did not explain why it was ending the program, but observers speculate it could relate to a falling birth rate, the end of the one-child policy in 2015, and increased adoption within the country, which is
mm,
great. I mean, all of
mhm,
that is great. That
mhm.
the birth rate's gone down, the one-child policy has been lifted for now 10 years, and you know, people are adopting within the country. That is amazing. But when you have these existing applications and, you have this child and the parents or potential parents building that bond with them, because it's not a quick thing.
Right.
It takes years to do that. And to be so close and to have it be taken away,
Yeah.
you like, that's horrible.
Yeah, it does take a lot of years to do that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Quote, if
Right.
China has decided that it no longer needs to look externally for families for their
Mhm,
children, then that's a success story, as I just said.
mm, mm,
She said adoptions from China have been steadily declining since the country joined the Hague Convention on Inter-Country Adoptions in 2006. Canada is also a signatory to the treaty, which imposes strict safeguards to ensure all adoptions are in the best interests of the child.
mhm,
Countries that have signed on to the Hague or Hague, I think it's Hague, acknowledge that the best place for a child to be raised is in a family. That's the priority, either keeping them within their biological family, finding a
mhm.
family locally, or if that can't happen, looking elsewhere for a family. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Um, okay, I think we do have more of this one. So, in a statement, IRCC said 10 minors were adopted from China and granted Canadian citizenship in 2023. 5 children from China were adopted up to July of 2024. Um, this person, what's her name again? What did I say her name was? Ramsbottom or whatever her name is. She's
Mm,
concerned about children whose applications were in progress. To be deemed eligible for international adoptions, Chinese officials would have been required under the Hague Convention to rule out local possibilities.
mm,
She worries that this means, okay, I don't want to go too off topic. Well, maybe not really off topic, but
mm, mhm,
for those people who watch like TLC and have watched like Seven Little Johnstons, for example, is kind of the one that's come to my mind. For Mikel, because obviously I know you probably don't watch it. That
mm,
family is a family of little people, and they adopted 3 kids. They have 2 biological, and they have 3 adoptive children. They adopted one in Russia, they adopted one in Korea, and then they also adopted one in China. Um, And the thing is like when you're dealing with these countries or different countries that maybe aren't as progressive or aren't doing as much educating in terms of different, I guess, quote unquote, deformities,
mm,
um, the people in the country don't want to adopt them. They don't want to adopt a little person because they don't want to take on the responsibility of having to adopt a little person because you could be potentially looking at surgeries and what else, and that's like money, right? So I think like with this little boy that we're currently kind of discussing here, that was potentially going to be adopted by the couple in Quebec. He has special needs. He has a heart defect. Maybe people in the country don't want to adopt him or don't want to take that on,
Mm.
which is horrible.
Hmm.
But that's kind of seems to be the reality, I think, a little bit. I don't know
Right.
if the citizens of maybe some of these Asian countries have kind of maybe thought, I can handle this. Like I can adopt a child that's has special needs, but I I don't know. So I get like that worry of those children that maybe have issues like that, or not so much issues, I don't want to say issues, but deal with different things like that that is just not typical, you know? Um,
Mm.
so yeah, let me continue what she says here. She worries that this means that those kids might have little chance of local adoption and could eventually age out of state care to an uncertain future, which, happens in any country. China's international adoption program officially began in 1992 when the country was strictly enforcing its one child policy. More than 160,000 children, mostly girls and children with disabilities, were adopted internationally. And Nikki Rottenberg adopted her daughter, Shelley Rottenberg, from China in 1996, raising her in Dundas, Ontario. We have a Dundas, Ontario. I learned things today.
Dundas.
Dundas, apparently.
Hunter.
Yeah, but the reason why just in case anyone's confused, is
Mm.
I know Dundas has a street. There's
Hmm.
Dundas in Whitby, there's Dundas in Toronto. So I
Hmm.
didn't know there was a town or township or whatever
Mm.
called Dundas. That's new for me. Anyways, since there were very few other Asian people in their community, Nikki worked hard to expose Shelley to her culture. Saying, quote, I took her to all of the things that were Chinese in the area that I could because I wanted her to get the feel of being Chinese. Despite their best efforts, it was only later in life that Shelley found the connections she had been missing through a community of other adoptees. Saying, quote, there was so much that was like a common thread between all of us, things where we just understood each other. Um, this is what Shelley said, who is now the co-president of China's Children International, a nonprofit that supports Chinese adoptees. Jenny, I think it's Haijun Wills, was adopted from South Korea in the early 1980s and grew up in Kitchener, Ontario. Her memoir, Older Sister Not Necessarily Related, explores how adoption led to what she describes as feelings of racial and ethnic fracture, which continue to shape her experience in the world. She told The Current that finding and reuniting with her first family in Korea didn't immediately heal those fractures. She said, I didn't have the linguistic skills, I didn't have the cultural knowledge. I was still unequipped to build and sustain those relationships. Um, and she is a professor of English at the University of Winnipeg, whose new book of essays explores family and belonging. Um,
Mm.
Adoption isn't that sort of a singular act or this completed event. It's something that has lingering effects that I think has left residue on every aspect of my life. Um, let's see what else we have here because this article seems pretty long. Okay, yeah, it's long. But basically, yeah, they have ended it. We'll kind of end it there because it's a longer one. But they um they
Mm.
ended it. I don't think it's been reinstated. I'm sure now, kind of with everything that's kind of happening currently, I don't know like how easy that would be to kind of financially speaking, anyways. Um, but that would be like for them to bring that back. But I mean, I hope they do because you know there are
Mm.
people in internationally that will
Right.
adopt
Right. Right.
children, and not just in China, but like any other country, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah,
I do agree with that.
yeah. Okay, so let's go to our last topic.
Mm-hmm.
And this one's an interesting one. So, a jellyfish-like creature that's called hydras, so hydra, but with an S, can develop tumors if overfed, which in turn can be passed on to their clone offspring. So, a new study on this bizarre phenomenon not only reveals details about the process in hydras, but improves the understanding of transmissible forms of cancer in general. So, while tumors are an inevitable risk of being a multicellular being, there are thankfully few examples of cancer that can be passed between individuals. The most well known are two that affect the Tasmanian, okay, Tasmanian devil. Another instance affects dogs, and 11 observed in bivalves. I don't know what that is. Of course, we're keen to understand how contagious cancers emerge in the first place. I didn't even know contagious cancers existed, so that's scary. Um, Namely to avoid somehow conjuring them in our own species, but also in the hope of protecting other creatures from the terrible suffering Tasmanian devils face due to their facial tumor disease. Oh, that's so sad. But all these
Yeah.
known and Tasmanian devils are so cute. I think they're adorable.
I
I,
actually never seen one.
you've never seen an actual Tasmanian devil?
No,
You should
only
Google it
the
right now.
I only see that
You're
obviously the
seeing like
cartoon.
the Looney Tune one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Is it
yeah.
anything like that?
No, like they're actually cute. I believe a Tasmanian devil can be kind of scary looking, like when
Hmm.
they are like, I don't think the noise they make, like when they're kind of being scary, they can look
Hmm.
pretty scary.
Hmm.
Um, but when they're not like that, they're cute. They're
Okay.
kind of fuzzy.
All right. All right.
Um,
Nice.
so, but all of these known instances of transmissible cancer had
Hmm.
been well established by the time that they found out, or scientists found out about them. So, evolutionary ecologist Sophie Tezet, I think is how you say her name, from the French National Center for Scientific Research, and her team had to take a different approach to tracing the origins of contagious cancers. Conveniently, one freshwater creature related to jellyfish in sea anemone. Oh God, I'm gonna pull the Nemo. Okay, anemones, anemone. Okay, got it. You know what actually is harder? Okay,
Hmm.
spontaneously developed tumors in a lab experiment 15 years ago in response to overfeeding. So Hydra Oligactus, I think is how you say it, which is a freshwater creature related to jellyfish and, as I just said, sea anemones, that is considered quote unquote immortal in many ways, reproduces asexually, cloning itself by forming little buds that break away to grow into a physically separate but genetically identical creature.
Hmm.
This, along with its propensity to form tumors under lab conditions, shows potential for researching the genetics of cancer development. Tissa and colleagues set out to show just how valuable this model can be for understanding the evolution of transmissible cancers. So, quote, using Hydra, I'm just going to say Hydra, which exhibits spontaneous tumor development that in some strains became vertically transmitted. This study presents the first experimental observation of the evolution of a transmissible tumor. Therefore, it makes the first contribution to understanding the conditions of transmissible cancer emergence and their short term consequences for the host. So they collected 50 of these hydras from Mothead Lake in France and set them up for a life in the lab. That sounds like fun to guarantee a high tumor development rate, budding, and thus increased chances of tumor transmission. The researchers fed some of these polyps an excessive amount of brine shrimp larvae. That's some of their babies. That's what I mean. 5 times a week. mimicking the conditions that prompted tumor development in an earlier study. Now, listen, I don't like this. You wanna know why? For those
Mm,
people who watch 911, you all know why. When you speed up, people die.
mm,
I'm a little butthurt at the moment, but anyways, we'll just continue. So,
mm,
19 of these overfed hydras, which were bulging with tumors after 2 months, were
mhm,
selected and their buds collected and grown under the same circumstances. The researchers followed this process through 5 generations of tumor forming colonal buds, selecting these from their tumor peers to
mhm,
beget the next generation. To make sure the tumors were being transmitted from the parents rather than just arising spontaneously in each generation, the researchers looked to the descendants of cancer free hydras. Hydras from parents that had tumors were 4 times more likely to develop tumors than those whose parents did not have tumors, even though all the hydras were genetically identical. Which I mean can kind of make sense, like in terms like if you think human wise, if like breast cancer, for example, runs in your family, there is a higher probability that you can either get breast cancer or maybe another form of cancer. So it's kind of, even though you're not genetically identical, like that kind of makes sense. So through all of this, the researchers confirmed that tumors can indeed be induced in Hydra and that transmission rate can increase over time. They also noticed the fifth generation of hydras carrying transmissible tumors began to show changes in life history traits compared to their tumor-free counterparts. They increased investment in asexual reproductive efforts before the tumor had a chance to develop, with budding slowing down after the tumor set in.
mm.
This seems to go hand in hand with another change in which bud mortality was higher after the appearance of the tumors. So they note that the scarcity, I'm fine,
Mhm,
of
mhm,
transmissible cancers may be more due to the lack of suitable environmental conditions for the spread, since at least in this study, the acquisition of transmissibility seemed to be no issue for tumor cells. If this is true, they conclude it is crucial to consider these aspects in the study of ecosystems disturbed by human activities, as they could potentially modify the conditions that favor the spread of transmissible cancers. That's that.
mm,
Again, kind
mm.
of scary that that's even a thing. That
Yeah.
contagious cancer or tumor, I should say, because not necessarily all tumors are cancerous, but that
Mhm.
can be like a thing. That's scary.
Yeah, it is. It is really scary to hear something like that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Because obviously, like right now, obviously seems to be more within the animal kingdom,
Mm,
but like when is that going to change to humans? Like when's that going to happen to humans too? Just
mhm,
like if you look at like the strain that caused COVID, that was within the animal kingdom, and then it went to humans. Obviously, a different scenario than maybe what would happen if it did happen, but just
mm.
yeah, that's my question. But anyways,
Okay.
that's it for me.
All right. So this ends episode 101 of the Next Tape podcast. The Next Tape podcast is available now on all podcast platforms. We also have a website called Tanika.
Next day podcast.podpage.io.
And where else are we at?
Facebook and Instagram on Next Take Podcast, and Twitter, TikTok, and Blue Sky at Next Take Pod.
You can contact us on our email at mikeltanika@gmail.com. That is mikeltanika@gmail.com. So, yeah, we talked about a few things on this episode. Do you want to rewind
Oh,
on
or do
that?
I remember now? We talked about the the contagious cancer tumor
Cancer. Yeah.
situation. We talked about the adoption, the international adoption ending,
Hmm.
China ending it,
Yeah.
and
And then the
then
space.
the Saturn-like rings that
Yeah.
Earth
Yeah.
may have sported million to chillion years ago.
All right. Nice. Okay. Hope you guys enjoyed that.
Mhm.
And anything else you want to say? I have nothing else to say.
No, I mean, we're gonna probably aim to get this out tomorrow as we're recording this. And then you'll be getting the next episode like a day later. Obviously, we're a little late this week, but that's okay.
Yep. Yeah, we are. All right. And that's okay. All
Mhm.
right. I'm Mikel, and
And I'm Tanika.
we're out until
Tomorrow, like I said.
tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Peace, guys.
Bye.